Hello class, settle in. Today we're diving into a genuinely profound explainer based on the chapter Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom. Now, I know you're preparing for your CBSE English board exams, but trust me, this is so much more than just a syllabus requirement. It's literally a cornerstone of modern world history. We're talking about a man who gave up 30 years of his life to a prison cell just to tear down a deeply unjust system. Understanding his journey, the sacrifices made, and what he really meant by freedom is absolutely crucial, not just for your marks, but for understanding our shared human heritage. So let's explore this amazing piece of history together. To keep us on track, here's our roadmap for today. 1. The end of apartheid. 2. A glorious human achievement. 3. Symbols of national unity. 4. Sacrifices and heroes. 5. Courage and human nature. And 6. The meaning of freedom. Before we continue, if you find this explanation helpful, do subscribe to the YouTube channel The ACE Archive for more such easy explanations for CBSE English. Let's continue with the chapter.
Section 1. The End of Apartheid. A Dark History. Okay, so you really can't appreciate the light until you've understood the darkness, right? Before we celebrate the victory here, you absolutely must understand the word apartheid. Definitely note this down as it's a foundational concept for your exams. Apartheid was a brutal, officially sanctioned political system in South Africa that literally separated people based on their race. It was aimed directly at the dark-skinned population, stripping away their basic human rights and creating a society built entirely on injustice. The suffering was unimaginable. And remember, Nelson Mandela himself endured 30 agonizing years behind bars just fighting against this very system. But fast forward through all those decades of struggle, and we arrive at the historic day of May 10, 1994. Mandela describes it in the text as the dawn of a bright and clear autumn day. Now keep in mind, in the southern hemisphere, May is actually autumn, but metaphorically, it was the dawn of a brand new era. Over 140 global leaders and dignitaries came pouring in to pay their respects. Picture this scene, the gorgeous earthy sandstone of the Union buildings in Pretoria, acting as the backdrop for one of the greatest shifts in human history. The visuals of that day were just as powerful as the politics. Take a look at this quote, "A rainbow gathering." For decades, that very amphitheater was the ultimate symbol of white supremacy. But on this day, it transformed into this vibrant, beautiful gathering of different colors, races, and nations, all standing shoulder to shoulder. It was literally the birth of the Rainbow Nation, marking the installation of South Africa's very first democratic, non-racial government. Moving on to Section 2, A Glorious Human Achievement, the ceremony. Now, this ceremony was the moment the whole world had been waiting for, and the Union buildings themselves represent this incredible sweeping arc of history. We go from decades past, where these walls were the strict headquarters of racial oppression, right up to May 10, 1994, the exact site of liberation. And looking forward, it set the stage for a future society built to protect human dignity forever. It truly was, in Mandela's words, a glorious human achievement. The swearing-in ceremony was highly structured and, as you can imagine, deeply symbolic. Mandela was accompanied by his daughter Zanani. First, he watched as Mr. de Klerk was sworn in as second deputy president, and then Thabo Mbeki as first deputy president. And then the moment arrived. Nelson Mandela himself stepped up to the podium. He took his oath, swearing to obey and uphold the new constitution and to devote himself entirely to the well-being of the republic and its people. And then he gave his iconic address. In his speech, he refers to apartheid as an extraordinary human disaster. Class, grab your pencils and underline that phrase in your books. It is an absolutely crucial quote for your exams. He doesn't shy away from the deep pain of the past, but he instantly pivots to hope. He promises the world that never, never again will their beautiful land experience the oppression of one by another. It's just such a powerful promise of equality. Section 3. Symbols of National Unity. The military and the anthems. So right after the speech, we see these incredibly powerful symbols of national unity meant to heal a very fractured nation. Consider the unbelievable contrast here. South African jets are roaring overhead in perfect formation. But look at the ground. The very same high-ranking military generals, chests completely covered in medals, who just a few years ago would have arrested Mandela as a criminal, were now standing right in front of him, saluting their new president. They were actively pledging their loyalty to the new democracy. And Mandela notes, quite wryly, that he was not unmindful of this irony. The day was also marked by a deeply moving musical moment. Two national anthems were sung simultaneously.
The white citizens sang Nkosi Sikeleli e Afrika, and the black citizens sang Die Stim, which was actually the old anthem of the Republic. Now, neither group fully knew the lyrics to the anthem they used to despise, but singing them together like that, it represented the old and the new merging into one. It was literally the vocal embodiment of that unified rainbow nation. Let's turn to Section 4, Sacrifices and Heroes, the Foundation of Freedom. Even amidst all this massive celebration, a really solemn realization takes hold of Mandela. We absolutely must remember that this freedom didn't just happen. It was built on the unimaginable sacrifices of thousands of unnamed heroes. Notice how incredibly humble Mandela is here. He doesn't puff out his chest and claim to be a lone savior. Actually, he feels a deep, aching pain that the people who fought before him couldn't live to see this day. He views himself simply as the sum of all those African patriots who had sacrificed everything. He takes time to specifically honor the great leaders who paved the way, titans like Walter Sisulu and Oliver Tambo. And Mandela points out a really fascinating paradox here, and pay attention because this frequently pops up in your board papers. He says that the profound depths of oppression actually created these soaring heights of character. The sheer brutality of apartheid inadvertently forged men of extraordinary courage, wisdom, and generosity. He realizes that the people, not the minerals in the ground, are the country's truest and purest wealth. That brings us to Section 5, Courage and Human Nature, Mandela's Realizations. Those long, dark days in prison led Mandela to some profound observations about human nature. This is a very important takeaway for your answers. Mandela's redefinition of courage. Watching his comrades risk their lives day after day, he realized that courage is not the absence of fear. Look, everyone gets scared. Rather, courage is the triumph over that fear. The truly brave man isn't the one who doesn't feel afraid. He is the one who finds the resilience to conquer it. From there, he argues a beautiful, incredibly emotional truth about human nature. He says no one is born hating another person because of their skin color or their background. Hate is something that has to be learned, and his logic here is just deeply inspiring. If people can be taught to hate, then they can surely be taught to love, because love comes so much more naturally to the human heart. He notes that even in the grimmest times in prison, just seeing a tiny, fleeting glimmer of humanity in a guard was enough to keep his hope alive. Section 6, the meaning of freedom, the twin obligations. Mandela explains that every man has twin obligations in life. First, you have a personal obligation to your family, your parents, your wife, and your children. But second, you have a broader obligation to your people, your community, and your country. The tragic reality he highlights, though, is that under the brutal system of apartheid, it was quite literally impossible for a black man in South Africa to fulfill his duty to both. If you chose to serve your people, you were inevitably ripped away from your family. As we trace Mandela's life, we actually get to watch his understanding of freedom mature. Mark this down, it's a very common long answer question. As a little boy, he had the illusion of freedom. You know, he was free to run in the fields and swim in his village stream. As a student, his idea of freedom was transitory and pretty selfish, just wanting to stay out late. But as an adult, when he realized his people were chained, that boyhood illusion completely shattered. It transformed into a massive collective hunger for the basic and honorable freedom of all his people to live with dignity. And this journey leads to a stunning realization near the very end of the chapter. Mandela notes that the oppressor must be liberated just as surely as the oppressed. Now, why is that? Because a person who takes away another man's freedom is themselves a prisoner. They are a prisoner of hatred, locked securely behind the bars of prejudice and narrow-mindedness. Ultimately, both the oppressed and the oppressor are robbed of their humanity. Think about it. If you are taking away someone else's freedom, you aren't truly free yourself. Therefore, true freedom can only exist when absolutely everyone is free. It's a collective state of being, not some individual privilege. As we wrap up this explainer and you finalize your exam preparations for this chapter, I really want to leave you with this thought to reflect upon. Don't just memorize these points for the test. Really ask yourselves, how does Nelson Mandela's definition of true freedom challenge us to recognize and dismantle the prejudices in our own world today? Keep that reflection alive as you study. Best of luck with your preparations, class, and I will see you in the next one.